Like to call to order our October the 4th, 2022 school board meeting for Lynchburg City School Board. And we are delighted to have everyone tonight, members of the board. Two of our members will not be here tonight, Mr. Andrews and Dr. Sinha, and they have acknowledged their reasons, and they will not be participating virtually tonight. So we'll make sure, Madam Clerk, that they are appropriately informed of all of the details of tonight's meeting. Having said that, we will move to item B, agenda approval. Members of the board, the agenda has been, Dr. Gupta.
I'd like to propose an amendment to the agenda.
Please.
Today is our board chair's birthday, so maybe we'll add an item to celebrate the birthday.
Oh, wow.
Did you bring the cake?
I'm a poor guy. Rich lawyers buy the cake.
I brought snacks.
Well, thank you for that, Dr. Gupta. Doesn't appear to be a second for it, but I do thank
I'll second
you. No, that's all right. Thank you very much, Dr. Gupta. I appreciate that. You have the agenda before you. Is there any a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting?
I move that we approve the agenda for tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Carter, and seconded by Ms. Preston. Any further questions or
Are we
discussion?
voting on the amended agenda or the?
Well, I didn't think we had a second, but Martin did say
Gotta
so.
sing a happy birthday for him. That was part of the agenda item. Amendments.
He's good. Happy birthday. Let's roll.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Gupta. I really appreciate that. Wow. Madam Clerk, please call the roll on the approval of the agenda.
School Board Member Preston.
Yes.
School Board Member Mr. Charles.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Brennan.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Coleman.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Carter.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Gupta.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Day.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, members of the board. Tonight, we will stand now for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We certainly are mindful of so many persons that are having challenges, and in our community, we're fortunate, but we are mindful of all concerns. For public comments tonight, Madam Clerk, we have no comment in any form tonight. And so we do want to remind the members of the public that we always look forward to hearing from you. And we will now move to Section D, which is our student representative comments. And tonight we have a wonderful feature before us, and so I'm going to ask Dr. Edwards to please present our first student representative.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we're doing in Lynchburg City Schools is building
leadership skills. And we decided to start with some of our representatives that attend our school board meeting. And you know, we have two excellent student reps that are in high school who each month do an excellent presentation for the school board. But we're adding a guest rep each month from a different school, from elementary school up through middle school and other programs that we have. And I have with me tonight on Zoom Dr. Jeff Guerin, who is the principal of TC Miller. So I am going to turn it over to him and have him introduce our special guest rep tonight. Dr. Guerin.
Sure. I appreciate this time, and thank you for letting me join via Zoom. My guest rep, you know what? Every day we do announcements, and she asked one day to do announcements, and she sort of picked on her principal and tried to sound just like him, and she did a great job. But Kalani told her she is our guest rep from TC Miller. She is our 4th grade student, and I know she prepared some remarks. I think she might be Eagle on there. At least I'm hopeful. Maybe that's not her, but I hope that she's on there and ready to take over. Kalani, are you there? Maybe not. I can give them a call if that helps, but there she is. Yep, there she is. Hey, Kalani. The floor is yours. I might just call them real fast just to make sure they know it's their turn, okay?
Yes. So like I said, this is something new that we're doing. Developing our leaders, and what a great way to just get out there and start. The beauty of it is we're in education, so
That's
every
exactly
moment is a
right.
teaching moment right now.
That's right.
But I'm sure Kaylani has a lot to say and wants to share with us. So we'll give her a moment. And if not, we can go ahead to our high school reps, and then we can come back if they're unable to get in. Looks like we're going to high school.
Well, we'll do that and come back if we can.
So we will switch to Kaylin.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Okay, I'll just start off. So, this past month at Heritage has been very exciting with our sports teams, our theater program, and our clubs kind of going into back in full swing. So, next slide. Our golf and volleyball teams have been very successful. The golf team had a great final match where they played against Glass and Brookville, and wish a good luck to our varsity and junior varsity volleyball teams because they'll play Rustburg tonight. Our cheer team, the competition cheer team, competed in Harrisonburg this past Saturday. Our cheer team this year is excellent. I know that they don't tend to get shout-outs or really get included with the sports teams, but I've been to a couple football games this year, and they really, they're very cheerful. Heritage did win the Jug Bowl against Glass 12-0, and we will play our homecoming game against Brookville this Friday. Congratulations to Officer Takis. He was our substitute resource officer last school year, and he was recognized as the Lynchburg Police Officer of the Month. On September 14th, EC Glass hosted a college fair that was attended by both Glass and Heritage students. The students were able to talk with college representatives as well as scholarship coordinators. Pioneer Theater's first show of the season, Night of the Living Dead Live, opened last Thursday. There's 5 more performances this Wednesday through Sunday, all at 8 p.m. in the Heritage Courtyard, and we would love to see you there. I am also in that, so that would be we invite you out to that. This week is Spirit Week at Heritage. Here's some of our admin participating in Toy Story Day on the left and then Celebrity Day on the right. We have Mr. Beatty, and then our assistant principals, Miss Poindexter, Miss Lipscomb, and Miss Bird. And then for the rest of the week, tomorrow we have White Lies Day, Thursday we have Elders Day, and then Friday is Pioneer Pride Day, so wear your orange and blue. October 2nd was National Custodian Day, so shout out to our excellent custodian. Would you like me to hold? Okay.
Coming back.
Do you have it on your computer?
Yes.
We can keep it moving.
Okay. October 2nd was National Custodian Day, so shout out to our custodial staff at Heritage. On September 16th, the juniors and seniors joined together in the Heritage parking lot to watch the sunrise and eat breakfast together.
Wow.
And congratulations to Khalil Reeves and Dylan Lamar for receiving the Weekly Wrestling Award for their hard work in practice and in school. And finally, our Aquaponics Club has selected their leaders and members for the 2022 and 2023 school year. Our Aquaponics Club is very cool. They deal with pretty much anything aquatic. Last year, I know that they had fish that they actually grew a habitat for, and they work with the environmental club as well to work together on various projects in the school and community.
Excellent.
Thank you for your time.
Excellent report. Wow. She's able to enunciate, pronounce words that I couldn't even figure out how to say. That is awesome.
There we go.
Wow.
What time were y'all actually there?
That was, I think they got there at like 6:15.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Early morning.
Mhm.
Fun.
And that's Mr. Drumheller's.
Yes, it is.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you, Kate.
We're going to class.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Here we go. So this month, we are starting a new attendance incentive for different grade levels. There will be a competition between the different grade levels, and this month, as an incentive, whoever has the highest attendance rate will be able to go around the school to different, what we're calling sweet stations, and get candies and just sweet treats for attending all their classes and school each day. This past month, on the 24th, we held our homecoming game and dance. It was a Starry Night themed, and our student council did an incredible job at putting this all together, planning this out, and I think everybody had an incredible night. Our governor's school students have been having a great year. Our first year Gov school students, our juniors, have had a great time. One quote from a student is that it is fun meeting a lot of new people and making new friends, and the teachers are great as well. A quote from one of our seniors is that it is challenging, but through collaboration with peers, I can overcome any challenge. Our EC Glass Theater is currently rehearsing for their first show, Pride and Prejudice. They will have performances from November 17th through 19th. Our Beacon of Hope took our seniors students, on a field trip to the University of Lynchburg. Here, they applied beforehand and were notified the day of if they were accepted. Every single student that applied and attended was accepted, so congratulations to them.
Wow.
At our first football game of the season, our Link crew hosted the freshman tailgate to welcome all the new freshmen and have a great time before the football game. Our student section has been doing an incredible job at showing up to the games and showing their school spirit. This year, we were lucky enough to have spirit days planned out by our student council, so for each game, we all dress up as certain and different spirit wear. Our athletics are off to still a great season. Our varsity football is 4-0, our JV football is 1-2, our varsity volleyball is 6-3, and our varsity field hockey is 6-4. And a shout out to them as they beat VES last night 1-0. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Wow. Thank both of you. Outstanding reports, and we really appreciate your contributions.
Okay, Dr. Guerin, we're coming back to you.
I'll give you an update. I just got off the phone chatting with Mom, and I guess our auditions went a little long today. We're auditioning for Shrek Jr. this evening, and Kalani is one of our students. Is it okay if we hold off for just a few minutes?
Sure. Just let me know when you're ready. Will you be able to do it tonight?
Yeah, no, we'll still do it tonight. I just got told she's being picked up from the auditions right now. I guess it ran a little longer. They were really excited about it, but she's excited too.
Well, that is a good problem to have. So we wish her well on auditions. And then when you're ready, just either text me or let me know. And we will make a space for Miss Kalani. Don't worry about it.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Edwards.
you.
Thank you, Dr. Edwards. And I hope that this board knows why you should compliment yourselves. We are one of the boards in Virginia that values the contributions of our students. And so thank you, Dr. Edwards, for this initiative. I think it's important as we continue to move forward. We'll move into Section E, and we will come back when cued for the report from the young student. All right, item 1 is our August 2022 Revenue and Expenditures and Health Insurance Summary. Dr. Edwards.
Absolutely. So I am going to turn it over to Dr. Wodeka and Ms. Capazzi to go over the August 22 revenues and expenditures.
So you can see the chart listed in your board docs here. The revenue and expenditures summary is a comparison of August 21 to August of 22. You can see that we have received a little bit more of our revenues than we did in August of last year at 11%. Our expenditures to date are about on par with last year at this time. However, our expenditures, including the encumbrances, are a little bit higher, so we're doing a little bit better with spending down our money earlier in the year. The health insurance summary, I would like to point out that the July fiscal year receipts were reported incorrectly by myself and Barbara. We just, inexperienced, pulled the wrong numbers. So we have corrected that. However, I'm not showing a July to July because I don't feel as though it's an accurate, picture of what's going on. Only because we had excess in July of last year and we did not this year. So our year to date, though, you can see where that change in July's receipts makes that deficit of $854,000 in July, which is carried over into August. However, again, that additional 10% is not included yet because we didn't start that until September. So that's not included yet in those receipts numbers. And if you look at the year-to-date total, it's actually the same amount as August only as far as what our deficit is. And that's actually that 10.59% that is less than what we owed at this time last year. So we are on a trend of greater receipts and lower disbursements. You can see in the chart below, as far as our revenues, that's last year to this year, August. Again, just showing that our expenditures, we're spending a little bit more earlier in the year. And then our health insurance summaries, year to year, you can see that disbursement or that negative amount there is less now than it was last year at this time. And that's just comparing the month-over-month disbursements and receipts without that excess that was left over from last year. So this is just current what's being received and spent every month. We are not offering a update on CARES because that just closed this past Friday. So we are in the process of making sure that everything has gone through and finalizing those numbers as far as those reimbursements that we're expecting from the state. So we're hoping to be able to update that, and well, not hoping, we will be updating you on that in November as far as where those stand.
All right, Dr. Gupta.
I had a comment. I think you're right. The imbalance is $35,000, so it's moving in the right direction with the 10% additional premium coming in. Hopefully it will stabilize going forward. My question was, your revenues, do they include any withdrawals from the CARES money? You know,
The
because,
CARES would be under Fund 5. This is just Fund 1, our operating funds.
so it's purely no mix match with the care funds when you show the revenues and expenses.
Correct. Any of those expenses are, budgeted for under CARES, under that 5 fund. This is just operating.
Any further questions? Dr. Brennan?
I assume, so this month, I know that we're going towards a graphic look for our expenses and revenue. And so in the recent past, we've received that itemized, multi-page phenomenon that had every penny that was spent. Now we've gone to the two graphs that we've kind of gone from the microscopic to the 50,000 view. Do you think we'll come back at some point to actually give us line items of some of the revenue and expenses that we have? And I would reference, I went back in the previous minutes, and I think in December of 2020, we had October revenues, which we had for a long time, which is like a 2-page sheet of revenue, 2-page sheet of expenses by department. It was pretty straightforward. But I think that one of our responsibilities as the board is to be good fiduciary members and really monitoring the budget. And I'm not sure that giving us these graphs really give us what we need to have. So.
Okay, that's where this information is generated from, so that's not a problem. We can include those. I can include those. I can send those over to Tina so she can, because it is the information that's reported here. So it's just exactly like you said. It's taking this number and doing this. That's not a problem.
So what I'm talking about is a statement that actually has sort of by department what the expenses are on those things. And again, not the one we've done previously with the multi-page, but and if this has to go back to the finance committee, that's fine also. But I think a report that would be in between what we got before and what we're getting now would be helpful.
What was the model? You mentioned a month.
It's the report for October 31st, 2020. And I think it was in the December 2020 minutes. And I just kind of went back to someplace where I thought that would be. And then one other question, Dr. Walter,
Can we stay on that one point?
Yeah, sure.
It'll still be yours.
Sure.
I just want to know, the vice chair has introduced some interesting thoughts here about higher levels down to lower levels and what the board wants. And so I just want to make sure, because I know in the past, sometimes it can be a little difficult for administration. One board member is requesting A, and other board members may not see a need for that. And I don't want us to keep going back and forth on this issue. And it might be a place for finance to come back and give some thoughts, or for you as a general board.
Yes.
Vice Chair, your point is incredibly well taken. I just want to make sure as chair that we are managing this appropriately, so we won't be moving administration in different directions along the way. Anybody having a comment on that, and then the floor will be with the vice chair continuously on his point. Dr. Carter.
I like the way it was previously with you, not with the one like Dr. Brennan is stating, but we need to make up our minds.
True.
We keep fluctuating.
Anyone else want to comment on that? And we'll so duly note that, Madam Clerk, and try to figure out the best way that will please the board on that report. But thank you for that, Dr. Brennan. It seems like we might be moving back in that
Yeah,
direction.
no, Dr. Owen, thank you for clarifying, because I don't want to move us back into one board member asking for something and the whole board. So whether it goes to the finance committee or wherever is certainly appropriate.
I want the same. I agree we had too much detail in the past. That sounds like a good middle ground. I don't know if I've ever seen that. Does that before my time?
I think it might have been,
I've never seen that.
yeah. And I'm not sure that's the answer, but it just is a little, it's in between what we've gotten, so.
Dr. Gupta may want to weigh in, and then we still.
Whatever it is, I think we should resolve it for the good, because I hear before pie charts and graph charts, and they make more sense. So if we're going back to the table, they should know we're going for the table. This mix and match hodgepodge will cause confusion and stress, unnecessary drainage of work hours. Whatever we ask them, we follow that path for a little while, not keep changing. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Doctor. Dr. Day would also like to comment.
Not on this, not on the format of the reporting here, but I have a different question.
Okay, I'm going to come right back to you,
Okay,
Dr.
that's
Day, because Dr. Brennan has the point. Madam Clerk, just duly note that, and we'll figure this out as quickly as we can as a board and get the direction. Go ahead, Dr. Brennan.
So then a question as far as the health insurance summary, that it certainly is encouraging that in the near future, we're going to have that extra 10%, the premium during the budget, but we still have $890,000 after 2 months as far as the deficit. And is that, a concern as far as, do we have an idea how much that 10% will decrease that deficit? Will that put a significant input in that? And/or do we have some plan in the future to try to actually address the deficits so we're not continually getting into a bigger hole?
Yes, so right now, because the expenses are also going down and those revenues are going to go up, we just want to watch it for the next couple of months and see where we're headed with that. And then, yes, Dr. Wodeca and I have spoken about how do we reallocate funds from our health insurance over into this in order to try not to have a deficit. And then budget-wise is where we really want to focus our attention and make sure that we're budgeting appropriately.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think as we start off our kind of first year, getting the feel of where we are, I think we feel pretty confident with some of the other savings and things that we have. We'll be okay. We just have to make sure we're watching it pretty closely.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Coleman.
Thank you, Dr. Brennan, Dr. Day, and then Dr. Carter.
In the past, not the last 2 months, but you'll usually also include a couple lines for the adopted budget and adjusted budget. But we don't have that here. We didn't have that last month. And is that because there's an audit going on and you're waiting for that?
Exactly, that's not going to change until the audit is complete.
Once
So.
the audit's complete, then we'll have those numbers again. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Day. Dr. Carter?
And just for clarification, when you were talking about, we'll get it from the health reserves, we're not talking about the monies that are set aside.
No, the health insurance reserve, no.
Thank you for that clarification, Dr. Carter. Any further questions for this item on the agenda? All right, thank you so much, Director Capazzi, our CFO, and Superintendent. All right, we're going to now move to item 2, and that is, no. Yeah, we can pause. They ready for us?
Yes.
Okay, board, thank you for your flexibility tonight, and we're going to, go ahead, Dr.
We're going to go back to D1 with our guest rep and Dr. Guerin again. So I think we're ready, Dr. G?
I think this has been all part of our plan. We had TC Miller in the background the whole time. I think that's just great publicity. I do want to say thanks to Dr. Day for coming out and visiting us the other day. But Kalani, are you ready? I know you were pulled over in the car there. It is your turn to shine.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kalani Toller. I'm sorry that I'm so late. I just finished Shrek Junior auditions. But TC Miller is off to a great start for the 2022 and the 2023 school year. At TC Miller, we have lots of opportunities to learn in and outside of the classroom. Our theme is Small Hands Can Change the World. We are learning that we can make positive impacts on the world through our words and actions. This year, I'm really excited about Shrek Jr. We hold auditions this afternoon. I can't wait to see what my part will be in Shrek Jr. Other opportunities, I'm involved in show choir and theater art. In 4th grade, learning about Virginia, including borders. Multiplication, we are also writing narratives about a skunk entering the school. Wouldn't that be a mess? Some TC Miller's traditions, including a Thanksgiving parade, performance, holiday sing-along, field day. You won't want to miss those events. I'm so thankful to attend TC Miller, where our classroom conduct science experiments and this stream lab and perform on stage. Very own gym.
So Kaylani, we may have missed some of what you said because your video was going in and out, but I do see you have your notes written down. So if you could share those with Dr. Guerin and he can share them with me, I can make sure that the board did not miss a single word of all that wonderful stuff you were talking about.
Yes, ma'am.
And we just
I'll
want
make sure
to,
she gets a chance to video that for tomorrow. We'll send it out on the video, but she did a great job. We're so proud of you, Kalani. Good job.
you did excellent, excellent
It's
job.
okay. What we'll do is we'll film a video tomorrow and send it to Dr. Edwards so she can share with the board, okay?
Okay.
Hey, Lonnie, since you were our very first student guest rep, you were so brave. I do have a special present for you that I will bring by to your school, just for you, for being the first one to do this in the history of Lynchburg City.
All right.
Thank you, Dr. Guerin.
Thank you, Dr. Guerin, also on behalf of the board, and Kehlani, that was tremendous. That's one of those drop the mic type of things. We really don't have the rest of the meeting, but the government requires that we continue to meet, so board, we will continue. And thank you so much for that, Dr. Edwards. I think that is a substantive add of value to what we do as a board and what the public can hear. That was phenomenal. All right, we're going to now go to E2 with learning recovery, and Dr. Edwards bring on this. It's going to be care fund allocations.
So this is not the complete CARES funding, but just a quick summary of the funding and programming for support for learning recovery. Notice we are no longer talking about learning loss because we are in some significant recovery mode. And I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Pugh to kind of go over that.
Thank you, Dr. Edwards. So as Dr. Edwards mentioned, I'm just going to give a brief overview and some examples of how we have used some of the pandemic relief funds for to support learning recovery and some mental health supports for our students over last year, this year, and the next couple of years. Next slide. So this is just a reminder of the grants that I'm really talking about and the time frame for those funds needing to be expended. We had the 3 ESSER grants and then the GEAR grant that was somewhat focused on some different things. In particular, one of them was technology. Next slide. So ESSER 1 and GEAR really have been dedicated to, in terms of learning loss, learning recovery and supports for our students, have been focused on creating and sustaining some remote and virtual learning environments, as well as some instructional delivery supports for our students. You'll also remember that in ESSER 1, some of those funds were also allocated for other things aside from instruction and academics. But in creating and sustaining some additional learning environments, some of the funds were spent on educational software to support our students' needs, as well as additional technology devices. That would have been a few of the student devices, but it's also in terms of devices that teachers have been using in the classroom to support learning, especially in the remote or the virtual environment. In the instructional delivery supports, if you'll recall, we spent quite a bit of our GEARS funds on mobile hotspots for our families. We purchased over 700 mobile hotspots, and at this time still have over 400 of those in our families' homes so that they can connect where they don't have Wi-Fi in the home. Again, we also use some of those funds for educational software, and then early literacy PD. As you know, we have focused on early literacy over the past couple of years, especially at the elementary school, and some of those ESSER and GEAR funds were, ESSER funds, were allocated towards providing professional development for our elementary teachers in foundations and Just Words and some other literacy supports. We also have spent quite a bit of money on extended learning and targeted academics, and again, that's spread out over ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. That supports our before and after school academic programs, as well as targeted individual and small group instruction, which is happening during the day. That may be tutoring, but it also might be just some individual supports of staff that are already LCS employees working with individuals, our small group instruction. Some of the funds have also been allocated to Bass Intercession. And before we move to the next slide, I just want to give you a little bit more specifics about some examples of how this has impacted student learning. And you can see the chart. This is the Heritage High School Academic Support Program from the 2021-22 school year. These students that participated were identified by the school counselors and teachers. The recommendations were made based on low academic achievement and support that was needed. They made some adjustments to their initial list of students because there were some parents that were reaching out to them requesting academic support for their children, and so they worked with those families as well as the lists that the teachers and counselors had provided. This program went along, and this was after school, and this program really supported the goals of their comprehensive school improvement program by providing each student with an academic coach. And the coaches worked individually with students and in small groups with students. They collaborated with their core class teachers on a weekly basis to check in on missing assignments and to get clarification on assignments if students were not understanding.
Can I ask?
62 students participated in the academic support program for this, again, is 21-22. There were 27 freshmen, 15 sophomores, 10 juniors, and 10 seniors. They tracked their grades every quarter, and the chart that you see here represents the percentage of improvement by grade level for their grades. And again, these were students that were below 60% targeted in their grades for their core academic subjects. And as you can see by the graph and the chart there was some significant improvement and sufficient improvement for some of those groups.
Can I ask a question before we go on? So the percentages in the box there, are those percentages of students that participated, or is that a measure of improvement?
That's a measure of improvement.
Okay.
So of the 27 freshmen, 69.23 made
Some
significant improvements.
Okay.
Okay. The other example, and I don't have anything represented on this slide, but this information is coming from Bass Elementary School, and this is their second semester efforts in terms of their before-school tutoring program. They had 17 students participating. It was scheduled. The students came 2 mornings a week before school. They were engaged in math activities, and they used some of the pinpointed data that they got from IXL to really focus in on the skills and the work that students needed to work on. And out of the 17 students in January, all but 1 student showed significant growth on IXL data. Again, in February, there were students that participated, 17 students, and they showed growth again in IXL. In March, they had 10 students participating. 10 tutoring sessions were held in March with 23 students participating. And they had students that were sort of added along the way. They feel like that, again, looking at IXL data, these students were making significant improvement and were working towards becoming on grade level. And again, the same is true in April. They really looked at their IXL data to look at the students who had participated over time. And again, this went along with their school improvement plan, and this information was discussed at their PLC meetings with the grade level teachers for the students that were participating in the program. So those are just 2 examples of how students were directly impacted by some of the funds that were used before our extended learning and targeted academic efforts. Next slide. And you'll recall in the summer of 2021, we had a much expanded summer program. We had 8 programs with over 1,000 students. And in particular, our Power Scholars program, which that summer was for pre-K through 5th grade students. We had 727 students participate in that program. We showed 3 months gain in reading and 3 months gain in math as an average for those students who participated. And again, the same this past summer, we had the same 8 programs offering summer school offerings, and again, over 1,000 students participated. Fewer participated in Power Scholars, but you'll also see that it was an increase from 5th grade all the way up to 8th grade as well. And on average, there was a 2-month gain again in reading and a 3-month gain in math.
So how do you determine those months gains? Where, like the 2 months gain in reading, 3 months gain in math, where's that coming from?
This information in particular for Power Scholars is coming from the Power Scholars program, which is our partnership with the YMCA. And they use a very specific and targeted curriculum for their Power Scholars program. So they are collecting data on a daily basis on student achievement and assessments that the students are taking. So they have a baseline of where the students are when they start in terms of reading and math. And then they have checkpoints along the way, and then they have a final assessment at the end of the summer program. And so this is an average of the gain of all of the students that participated.
So they are, the YMCA then is providing not just the activities that the students, because those Power Scholars programs, they have some fun stuff for the kids to do in the
The
afternoon.
morning is academics, and the afternoon is enrichment.
But even the morning academics part, the YMCA is providing some of the content for that, the academic content?
They are providing the entire content.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
All right, next slide. And again, just to wrap things up, we also have allocated some funds in ESSER2 and ESSER3 for mental health supports, which you are well aware have become very critical for our students over the past couple of years. These are supporting 3 behavior coaches. We are using a considerable amount of the funds to contract counseling services for our students. And in some of our schools at the elementary level, we have established mindfulness rooms where students can go to get themselves in a different mindset. If they're experiencing difficulties in the classroom, they can go to this mindfulness room with an adult, and after they've collected themselves and are ready to return to the learning environment, they come back to the classroom. So that's an overview just of some of the programs and the ways that we have used some of our CARES funding to support the learning recovery and mental health supports.
So the language of learning recovery is huge for us as a board to advance throughout the community. And I know that in the past, some were concerned, members of the board, about those funds. Is there any additional questions, Dr. Gupta?
So I'm trying to wrap my brain around the numbers. You mentioned Heritage Seniors, there were about 12 students who participated in the...
12 Heritage Seniors, yes.
We have about 800 students graduating from our high schools each year.
Mhm.
So that's less than 2% of the student population. With the learning loss standing at about an average of 50%. You know, I'm looking at the gap and see, remember last time when I asked, where is the plan? When Dr. Day said, plan for the plan. So the plan is, so I'm touching 2% of the student population. What is the plan for the rest of maybe 98%, maybe less than 98% of the population?
And that was just one example of one program for the extended learning, so before and after school. And again, that I understand that senior population at Heritage High School is very small, but they had to work with parents in terms of getting them there and making sure that they could stay after school or come before school. So there are some limitations. We have academic supports during the school day that are happening, and we also have instruction that's going on daily in the classroom where teachers are using the data to instruct to the students at their individual levels. Mr. Coleman and I are working on that plan for the plan, and we'll have that to present shortly.
Same number was like 1,000 Power Scholars. We got about 7,000 students. You take out what's in the high schools, minus that population. So how much give and take? 6,000 students in pre-K through 8 standard. So 1,000 plus is about, again, 10 to 12% of the student population. The numbers, my question, I'm not saying you guys are not doing, you're doing a great job.
Sure.
It's just we got that $23 million sitting there in that, is it ESSER 3 or ESSER 2 funding for learning loss recovery? And we have about a year and a half to catch up on that before that money goes away. So what could we do to push that thing in a very high gear? So everybody is being benefited, and these numbers next time show up are like 7,000 plus, 1,200 plus. You see what I'm saying? The numbers will show that we are touching a lot more students and then we are, because like 700 hotspots I was looking at, we got 7,000 students. That's almost 1% of the student population. And we have about 62% student, 58 on meal voucher, how many?
Yeah, but not all of, even the students, some of the students who are on free and reduced lunch have internet access in their house, so they didn't need the hotspot per se. The same thing with, yes, we have 7,800 students, but not all 7,800 students are in need of, let's say, the Power Scholars program or the mentoring program that they also have with Virginia Tech that comes into Heritage High School, and they do some programming. So there's multiple different programs for different kids, but you did hit on something that's very important to us. We can offer a lot, and part of it is having our families and communities say yes and make sure that students are participating and attending. We see that with the summer program, even though we provide transportation, we still have, you can't make them, right? You can offer it, you can incentivize it, and you can help transport folks there, but we need to become a community that all rallies around education and its importance to bring kids.
What I'm hearing from you is no child was left behind when it comes to resource needs like hotspots. Everybody who wanted it, got it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
although
And we
700
still
may
have-
sound like a very small number, but that represents the complete population of people who are in need of connectivity.
People who let us know that they are in need of connectivity. And our team did a great job of trying to destigmatize the ask, because sometimes folks might be in need of something but don't want to ask or don't want to make it known. And we tried to make that as easy of a drop-off and delivery, especially early on, as possible.
And, yeah, and they've continued, over 400 families still have them. We have continued to let families know that we have additional ones available. They're available to check out through the school library. It's a very easy checkout and a very easy connection at home. So that, along with some of the other funds that are allocated toward the WISH project, which is the broadband across the city that the IT is working on and is getting ready to push open the first pilot just to make sure that everything is connecting properly. So we feel like we are providing those resources for internet access at home.
And one thing that we're learning is that our best plan, while we plan for the plan, is a buffet, right? Because for some of our students, Power Scholars by far is their jam. They love it, that's what works for them, but that doesn't work for every student. So our role is to figure out what are the keys and the tools that unlock that potential in this child, that child, every child, by name and by need to graduation and beyond, and making sure that we make space to offer it all. So we're not trying to say, well, who's the best and the only. We're saying who's the best and all inclusive of what can we do, how can we work with the YMCA, Jubilee, Boys and Girls Club. You had some students who were here, or at least one student and his parent, from the summer program that was also both Heritage and Glass from the scholarly identity model. And, although Ms. Pugh did not give that as an example, we know that that had a positive impact on those students. We also have students in the middle schools, particularly Lincoln Middle School, who are also participating in the mentoring program. So I think where we are is trying to connect every kid with what is your resource that's going to help you grow. And even to the degree, and I know the new board members had an opportunity to talk with Beacon of Hope and Partners in Ed and Ed Foundation when they were here, and I know Beacon of Hope talked a little bit about their tutoring and mentoring program that they do for students. And again, that might be great for a population of students, and for that population, we want to support that and continue that. But it doesn't take us off the hook for looking for everything for every child.
Thank you.
All right, well, point very well taken. and the chair wants to recognize everybody. But before you bring up something different than the point Dr. Gupta just mentioned, is there anybody else that wants to speak directly to his question that I think has received a sufficient answer? And then I'm coming to Dr. Brennan and then Dr. Day, because I would like to add that makes perfect sense. You explained that so beautifully to a very pertinent question, both of you. And that gets to School Board Member Trost and others around the table of how do we audit organizations, community organizations, et cetera, who may have skill sets and contacts to go along the list of others that we're trying to reach out to. And as soon as we can weigh that and figure out what staff or what volunteers can help work that out, that will help us tremendously. And so I just wanted to be on the record that maybe we need to be thinking about how we make come alive what Dr. Edwards just stated, that we need the community. Here's a brilliant opportunity for them, but who the players are going to be to connect those dots to make that happen. Okay? So let that be so noted. We're going to work on that. All right, Dr. Brennan, then Dr. Day.
Thank you, Dr. Coleman. I have two quick questions. One is, Ms. Pugh, I know that the YMCA program has been so successful the last several years, and last year I think we got a nice presentation that showed the benefits. So number one, many thanks to the YMCA for their partnership with Lynchburg City Schools for doing that. Is the Power Scholars program this past summer, was that the only summer program we had for students, or did we have programs that were just LCS based?
Oh, we had 8 programs, and the only one that was not LCS, and Power Scholars is a partnership with LCS and the YMCA.
Right.
So while it is led by YMCA and the Power Scholars curriculum, it certainly is an LCS program.
Sure.
We offered the pedal at elementary and middle school.
Right.
So there were students that participated in that, in math. We offered the SOL Academy for students in the high school that needed to have some remediation and work on passing their end-of-course SOLs. We have the online courses for new credit enrollment, so there's the PE9 as well as the personal finance. And then we also had some additional activities that were offered in terms of, we had an EL program, an EL summer school program, which we had not had before. We have one specific to students with some learning needs, and we also had a specific program for the Empowerment Academy. So we had a wide variety of LCS-sponsored programs for our students to choose from this summer.
That's great. So, the main reason to bring that was just to clarify for the public, there are many programs that happen this summer outside of the Power programs, the Power Scholars program, but so thank
You are
for
exactly
delineating
right.
that. That's great. And then Ms. Cabbage has one quick question. I know that you're going to give us a more detailed presentation next month about the CARES funding, but as you know, there's been a lot of discussion about ESSER 1 and schools using up their funds. Did we use up our funds by September 30th for ESSER 1, or we?
That's exactly what we're looking at. We believe that we have requested reimbursement for most, if not all, but I can't give you an accurate number,
Sure.
whether we've definitely used them all or not.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Brennan. Dr. Day.
So, it seems to me there's 3 aspects of this. One is having a wide spectrum of different programs to meet the different needs of different students. A second one is the participation of students in the programs that are available. I visited the Power Scholars program at Lincoln Middle School earlier, this summer, and I talked to one of the teachers there, and I asked her what she thought the biggest need was, where were things not working, and what she said is that some students get letters telling them they're required to participate. It depends upon how well they did in the coursework during the academic year. And I asked her what happens if a student who's told they're required to participate just does not participate, and they're just passed on to the next grade. They're told that they're required, but there's no consequence to it. And so that is maybe the ugly underbelly of the issue of getting students to participate in these programs. And I know that's kind of a sensitive topic. You know, what do you do with the student who this student really needs this, but they just won't participate? I don't have an easy answer for that. I'm just saying there's a problem point that if anybody can come up with a solution to, I think it would help. And then the third is, given our mix of different programs? And are we able to serve all the students who want to participate? Or do we have to turn any students away from these programs?
We have not turned students away.
So it sounds like the bigger problem is getting the right students to participate in these programs. That may be the bottleneck here.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for that, Dr. Day. So again, let's go there and tackle that, and I think we can. And the effort is certainly there, and we appreciate that. Thank you, Dr. Day. That was very good. Dr. Carter.
The one thing that's always concerned me is that it's really for students that need remedial type learning or help.
Summer school?
Yes.
Well, our pedal program is not. That's for those students who are working a little bit above grade level in math. So our pedal program at the elementary and the middle school, that's not a remedial program. This summer we also, and I didn't mention this, but we also offered for the first time a theater program at the elementary level. So that was, I think that was just a 2-week program, but that was also an additional enrichment. So we're looking at expanding our enrichment and not just remediation offerings in the coming summers.
So are parents aware of that? Because I know I've had people that I always say, well, get your child into the summer school program, and they said, well, they are not allowed, or I've called and they can't get in because they're doing coursework that's above that grade level, and they said they can't come in. And I heard that again this summer. So,
well, at the elementary level in particular, in the Power Scholar program, we would accept any student who wanted to participate. We did not turn anyone away. Power Scholars has a very strict attendance policy. So we did have some students whose parents connected with us at the end of the first week to enroll them, and we actually were able to get them enrolled even though they had already missed 3 days of the program. So we worked really hard in our partnership with Power Scholars to make sure that every elementary student who reached out to us and enrolled and filled out an application was admitted into the program. So we did not turn anyone away.
Thank you, Dr. Carter. Well, I think we've had a good, healthy conversation on this, and it is clear that we have the funds. Those funds are being used appropriately, and we're targeting those funds to the best methods to meet the needs of our students. And so thank you so much for that. We appreciate it. Thank you for pulling that together for us. Now move to Section F of our agenda, which is our consent agenda. And this is for action tonight, and it will include minutes from the September the 6th school board meeting, minutes from the September the 20th school board work session, a human resources report, and then for our human resources report addendum, which has 2 very good items listed thereof. What is the pleasure of the board around the approval of the consent agenda?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Been moved by Dr. Brennan. Is there a second? Second by Dr. Day. Any further questions or discussion on approval of the consent agenda? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
School Board Member Ms. Preston?
Yes.
School Board Member Mr. Charles?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Brennan?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Coleman?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Carter?
yes.
School Board Member Dr. Gupta?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Day?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, thank you, board. We will now move to Section G, and for the purposes of tonight's meeting, I will call each of the items listed under G, and if you have no report, you can just state that. Number 1, with our Finance Committee, in the absence of our capable chair, Dr. Sinha, and the member of the committee, want to articulate any, Dr. Gupta?
Meet on October 11th, so.
Okay, all right, very good. And on October 11th, Dr. Edwards, again, remind the board during your comments or whatever you're going to be going over to council to make a presentation, because I do want as many board members just to be there. I know Dr. Brennan will be. But anyway, to your point, thank you, Dr. Gupta. Number 2, Governor's School Committee, Dr. Gupta.
We don't meet in October. Our next meeting is on first Wednesday of November.
Thank you, sir. Law Regional School Committee, Dr. Carter.
Our next meeting will be December the 7th at 10 o'clock a.m.
Thank you so much, Dr. Carter. Our STEM Academy, Dr. Carter.
The next meeting of our STEM Academy Committee will be November the 15th.
Thank you, Dr. Carter. And our Legislative Advocacy Committee, Dr. Carter.
Well, the Legislative Advocacy and the Community Relations Committee met, and we held our first organization meeting. And since I'm speaking, I was nominated as the chair of that committee. And one of our first tasks is to make sure that we invite the legislators in November to come and hear and see what our profile of our students are, and just to let them know where we are with recovery learning. And we also had the pleasure of meeting with the Transportation Department, and it was interesting that some of the items we already have in existence, and that we are planning to help the transportation with some of the issues, they've also noted some of those items on their list of items that they want to discuss. So we're going to, not so much the Legislative Advocacy Committee, but the administration is going to continue to work with them. And so we can see what we can do, because the Transportation Department is so valuable to us, and as each organization department is. That's all.
Thank you, Dr. Carter. Congratulations on being elected chair of that committee and the capable leadership you are providing. All right. Number 6, Partners in Education, Ms. Preston.
Okay, actually, I'm on number 6 and number 7.
That's correct.
Beacon of Hope and Partners in Education. But while those organizations didn't specifically meet, those of us who are new on the board had an opportunity to meet with representatives from those 2 organizations over the past week or so. And we learned a great deal about what opportunities they provide for our Lynchburg City School students and for our community at large. The Partners in Education works with area businesses, and Holland Hubbard was here to represent them at that meeting. And we talked about all of the many banks, businesses, church organizations, the city of Lynchburg, Centra, and I'm just pulling names out of my hat right now, but all of those organizations that work collaboratively with Lynchburg City Schools in order to help our children to learn, and that was really beneficial. We also had a representative from Beacon of Hope, and we learned some things about the programs that Beacon is providing. Some of them, of course, we obviously know about, but it was kind of a reminder that Beacon of Hope started out being, and I've been on the board for Beacon for a number of years, but Beacon of Hope started out giving opportunities to students as far as getting into college, but they've kind of spread their wings a little bit, and so now they are doing some things that relate to elementary schools with the group that they call Kids in College. They have a middle school heroes, that initiative that they're working on, and of course there are still the future centers that work with students in high school. And the number of students that are going on to college from Lynchburg City Schools has increased dramatically over that period of time. So we owe them a vote of thanks, both of those organizations.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Preston, for that, covering items 6 and 7. All right, very good. 8, Mr. Trost?
No report at this time.
Okay, thank you. So every meeting, we will go through that section in that manner, and we thank each of you. And we'll discuss later if, in fact, there is a recommendation that might come forward, i.e. from the Finance and Facilities Committee or the Legislative Advocacy Committee that may come out sometimes. I don't know if it'll require a second, but that might be how some of these things might get filtered out going forward. But anyway, thank you all, each of you, as we continue to build on our involvement in our committees and other groups. Number H, Section H is Comprehensive Strategic Plan. And the public, we have one, we are staying up with it, and Dr. Edwards and Dr. Waterco are going to help us to appreciate it. Thank you.
So absolutely, this month we wanted to focus on some of the goals in under fiscal responsibility, Goal 3. So you'll see we have 3.34, which is our division-wide safety measures, 3.31, which is CIP, which is coming up, Capital Improvement Plan, and then a little bit of work on 2.3.2, which is an awareness of work-related hazards, and of course, reducing the number of work-related injuries. We do have a safety manager in Cecil Jackson who has been working with us. He's done a great job of making sure that the fire department has been in, they're doing inspections. He has been helping us with some of the things with regard to our facilities plan. So we just wanted to take a moment to kind of update you on some of these goals and where we are with them. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Wotica to give you a little bit more detail under some of those.
Well, thank you, Dr. Edwards, and good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Pleased to be with you to talk with you about these three very important strategic plan items that we have moving forward in the division. I want to start off with reviewing and updating some of the division-wide safety initiatives and measures that are out there. So as Dr. Edwards mentioned, our newer safety manager started with us earlier in the year. Done a great job of building relationships, of course, with the building principals, as well as other outside organizations like the Fire Marshal's Office, to not have a negative relationship when inspection comes, right? So we're all sort of on the same team. We want our schools to be safe, and when those inspections do occur, we want the same thing together. And so we've been really working on building those relationships. Our schools are very active places, and we want them to be places that are opportunities for learning. And an important part of that is that we ensure that our schools are safe places. And so a really great organizational sort of best practice that we've developed and worked on over the last couple of months is actually the development of a safety committee. So we have a group of division folks who are working on understanding the high-level concerns that we see from buildings. We're looking at issues related to the crisis plans. We're looking at issues related to facilities inspections, as I mentioned before. So identifying areas where there are facility concerns that are creating safety concerns that do need to be addressed, as well as understanding our workplace injuries. That's, again, just sort of a very good best practice for organizations, and looking at trends and understanding how it is that our employees and certainly our students are interacting with their spaces and ensuring that we have this. So that committee formed last week for the first time. So we have a group of folks that are around, again, including folks internally, such as building principals, department directors, as well as other staff, but also some external partners like the fire department, as well as we'll be adding some folks from the police department as well. So we're really about building those relationships and having the opportunity to bring that expertise into the division where we possibly can. Another very important thing that Mr. Jackson has done and worked with some of our other folks throughout the division is developing a very detailed inspection. So we have, of course, the fire inspection rules that have to be taken care of. We have all kinds of other concerns and surveys that are done throughout the division. But as a proactive measure, instead of sort of reacting to the requirements, we have inspections going on throughout the division with the building administrators to ensure that our spaces are kept as safe as they possibly can be. So we're looking out for slips, trips, and falls, and those sorts of things, making sure there are not those issues out there, and addressing them as quickly as we possibly can to ensure, again, that those places are as safe as possible. The next thing I want to make you aware of is that I've talked about this before, but we did apply for the school security officer grant from the state. We were notified on Friday that we did receive that grant. And so that will be a process that, I told Dr. Edwards we have good news and bad news, right? So the great news is that we have this opportunity. The bad news is we have a whole lot of work to do really quickly to develop a program, training standards, responsibilities and oversight and that sort of thing that are really important that we really get right the first time as we develop the program. So we've asked an assistant principal at one of the elementary schools, since we're primarily focusing on the elementary schools, to partner with the police department and take the lead on the division side of things to develop this program to ensure that we develop the best possible relationship we can with those school security officers in our school buildings. I think it's always worth saying that I think we have one of the best SRO programs in that we are focused in on building the school environment that is supportive to students, that is supportive to staff. School resource officers are not there to arrest everybody all the time, right? It's about building a relationship, building a partnership. We want to mirror that relationship with our school security officers. We want to make sure, I think Dr. Carter's point last time, we want to make sure it's really, really clear the responsibility of that person is the entire school safety, not school discipline that continues to be the responsibility of school administrators. And so we want to really take a little bit of time, make sure the program is set up as best as it possibly can be, and get the right people in the room and at the table to make sure we're doing that. The next thing I want to mention is 3.3.1, the development of the capital improvement program. One of my favorite things professionally to work on. And again, this is about developing and building learning spaces that are supportive to our staff. You can't be in a learning space that is, the roof is leaking or there's a pipe that's broken or, it's hot all the time. It's very, very difficult, as we all know, to learn and engage in those spaces. And so we have two opportunities to focus in on how we can prioritize some building improvements that we need to make ahead of some of our master planning efforts. So you're aware, you've heard me talk ad nauseum about those efforts, but we also have some things that need to be done as that process goes along. So we have two opportunities to address some of these issues. Of course, we will have our return of fund balance. So we end, of course, as we always do, ended last year, hopefully, with more money than we spent. And we're working on what that exact number is right now. That's sort of through the audit. We've done a good job of trying to get that number down as much as we possibly can. And we have some pretty immediate needs as far as issues that need to be addressed in the budget, but we do have a number of capital needs that are two areas of concern that I'd like to really focus on. That is issues of school safety concerns. We have a number of buildings that still don't have security vestibules. We have a number of sort of architectural concerns in our buildings. As an example, at Robert S. Payne Elementary School, there's a cornice over the main entrance, or the formal main entrance, that is in such bad shape we're concerned about it falling off. So we need to get that repaired. Things like that are there. The other issue that I'm worried about is sort of building envelope concerns, we call it. So these are how tight the buildings are to water. So a number of our buildings leak a lot, we'll say. And we need to spend a little bit of time, quite a bit of time and effort, doing some exterior caulking and repairing places where we have masonry issues and things like that. These are really great things for us to do. And again, overall, our goal is to address those safety concerns where we can, and sort of close up the buildings where we possibly can to make sure that they stay in good shape. We'll return to you with a final return to fund balance number as we go along. The next opportunity is our CIP submission to the city, which is due later in the fall, and staff is working right now on developing a proposal for, of course, the superintendent to consider before it comes to you. And that will be where we begin to address some of the items, in addition to what we've done in return to fund balance, that are identified in that facility study. And so one of the great things that the school board did a couple of years ago is to commission that facility study, help us get a good grasp of where we are in this building, in these buildings. And also now we have some pretty good numbers to go along with that, so we can budget pretty effectively with that. So we are using CARES money to address some mechanical issues, but we do need city money to address many of the issues that are in our buildings. These are issues that are many years in the making, and we need to address many of the building maintenance issues, plumbing, electrical, mechanical, all the things that make the building the space that it needs to be. Again, not always the most exciting thing for everybody, but really critical. And then sort of the last thing we'd also like to talk about is starting to address a number of the sort of interior conditions in some of the schools. I won't mention any names of schools, but there's some buildings that if you go into them, they don't feel like positive learning spaces in the way that they've been maintained. And so we need to really start thinking about working on that and developing some action plans to make sure that our instructional spaces are as supportive as they possibly can be. And the last thing I'll just mention is, again, another safety-related issue, working on reducing our number of work-related hazards, work-related injuries. I want to, again, give acknowledgement of Mr. Jackson. He's been doing a number of safety trainings with a number of our employees, which are really critical, not only just for their safety, but also allows us to utilize the employees to the best extent we possibly can. So these are things like hazardous communications training, things like that, but also ladder safety training. So if we train our custodians to be on ladders, they can, in fact, change light bulbs, and we don't have to use an electrician to do that. And so this is an opportunity to not only make sure people are safe, but also make sure that we are utilizing our employees to the best extent we possibly can as we go forward. So everything's sort of connected in building on the organization and growing lots of opportunities, and would certainly be glad to take any questions you might have.
Wow.
Fantastic.
To Dr. Gupta and everybody around this table, it is just so refreshing to listen to these superintendents and people give these reports. I could understand everything you said, and it's just outstanding, and it's grounded in the work that needs to be done. Anybody have a question concerning Dr. Gupta?
Like a broken record, I'm going to say that again. As we look at the CIP plan, you know, Heritage Elementary School has been left out year after year, and Dr. Edwards, you will remember every time the CIP comes, we have, I think, one of the highest student population in that elementary school, but we still don't have a gymnasium. And that serves a major chunk of the Lynchburg City population on that side of the Timberlake Road and around it. So hopefully we'll consider. The other point I wanted to bring was, I understand deferred maintenance is there, and when Mr. Gatsky was there last year, I pointed out some of the infrastructure is leading towards deferred maintenance. To give you an example, Heritage track, the track is sort of getting worn out. So if we let it delay, then it'll become part of the deferred maintenance. Could we do some of these things proactively? So we maintain that new infrastructure. You know, the tennis courts have this fence around it, which has that black coverings, they're coming loose. So I'm just giving you these examples so that they don't become deferred maintenance. We are a step ahead of the deferred maintenance.
Yeah, no, so you're totally right, and I think a point where we need to get is a really clear replacement plan on all these things. Again, to your point, trying to do things proactively as best as we possibly can. Same thing with our fleet and school buses and other vehicles that we have, and all the things that we have. Just really good sort of management strategies that we need to take care of. So, totally agree.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta. Anyone else? All right, please, Dr. Edwards.
And this is more for new board members. The existing board members, we know this already, but back in 2019, when we were developing our strategic plan, because this is one of the goals in our strategic plan, you'll see there's a link to the Lynchburg plan, which is actually the city's plan that they have. And under goal two of their metrics under their investing in infrastructure and connectivity are also our metrics. So one of the things that they talk about is looking at the average age of infrastructure versus the rate of replacement, which is what our facility study is about when you look at the average age of our elementary schools being 70 years old. So some of that, as we work forward, will fall under this. The other thing is, Ms. Pugh also mentioned the high-speed internet access, and one of the things you recall that we did with the WISH initiative is try to provide more access to our community members. So often, while we have our own strategic plan goals, I just want to make sure that we're all clear that we are the school system in the city, and we link our strategic plan goals to our city goals, because what's great for our students is also great for our residents and community, whether they have children in the schools or not. But just wanted to make sure that people understood that when they saw on the agenda, but what's the Lynchburg plan? That's part of the city's plan.
Dr. Gupta?
You know, Dr. Edwards, people in the camera may not see what's on the other side of the room. They only see the board in this, and what I see is your very strong team, which has been built in this year. And I'm not saying it for the sake of saying it. It shows the strength of LCS. For anybody to diminish that will be foolish. It's two pillars of strength, and the strength goes from all the way back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta. I feel very safe sitting in this chair and very comfortable because of all this great power around us. Very well said. All right, if there are no further questions, thank you so much, Dr. Edwards and Dr. Whitaker. All right, at this time, we'll move to Section I, Unfinished Business, and these three items are all for action tonight. First, Instruction and Program Policy Updates. Dr. Edwards.
Absolutely. So this is the second review reading of these policies, and I do know that policy work groups are getting up and running again, and all of you, as your work group starts to meet, will be invited to attend those meetings as well. So this is the last of the ones that occurred before we switch back to adding board members to the group. Instruction and program, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Pugh to just kind of review that real quick, and take any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Edwards. At our last work session, we went over these in detail. Most of them are minor wording changes. There is one that I would like for you to look at again, which is JHCCA, Bloodborne Contagious and Infectious Diseases Policy. After taking into consideration Dr. Brennan's concern and also looking at the accompanying JHCCAE, which are the guidelines, one change that we have made between the work session and now is to strike the sentence that you see there: the student may be excluded from school and school-related functions pending the superintendent's decision. And again, this is specific to infectious or contagious diseases. So that is the only change that has been made. And so before you take action on it, I just want to make sure that there aren't any questions around that.
Dr. Brennan?
I just wanted to thank Mrs. Pugh and her team for making that change. I think that's very appropriate and takes away the stigma that could be suggested by that. So thank you very much for making that change.
Thank you, Dr. Brennan. Thank you, Ms. Pugh. Any further, Dr. Day?
Yeah, I have a question about actually a pair of these policies. It kind of seemed to me, so I'm referring to GCQB and GCQBRZ. GCQB talks about, in its final paragraph, if employees develop materials outside the scope of their employment, but which do have a connection to the work of the division, that they should inform the superintendent of their intention to develop those. But then in GCQBRZ, item 2, it says any employee who creates material using their own equipment during personal time and utilizes no division resources shall maintain the ownership and copyright of that material. So one of those policies sounds like if someone develops something that's related to school business, they need the superintendent's approval. The other says they own the copyright. Are those in conflict?
No. I'm not answering for superintendent.
I don't think that they are meant to be in conflict. I think the first one, in terms of just using, and it's more about staff research and publishing, if there's anything that involves your classroom, your kids, your colleagues, that you're using Lynchburg City personnel or student, even if this student information is coded. So often we have a lot of staff that are doing dissertations and things like that. So that one in the policy, they usually do let me know if they have to go through IRB or anything like that, where Dr. Edwards, this is what I want to do, but everything is protected and it's covered under FERPA. We don't have any information that's for our students. And if it's staff, if they have something where staff volunteered or opted in, they usually let me know. And I think that was the intent of the GCQB policy. The other one is more on the regulation. Let me pull that one up and think if I can talk to that. So I think this one is more to do with, and I'll use some of our staff for example. We have very talented staff that do some awesome, amazing video production for us. And they may also be doing some awesome, amazing video production with their own material that they own on their own private time, with the same name as, we know that employee. And I think that's where that's you, that's your stuff. You use your own camera film studio to do your thing. Still not using our students because that still will require me, but I'm not prohibiting them because the job that they do during the daytime for us is similar to their weekend job or their evening job where they're using their own equipment to do the same thing. So imagine we have some great folks who keep our maintenance and our facilities trim and neat, and they own their own side business on the weekend, but they have their own lawnmower and their own thing like that.
Well, I was thinking specifically about copyright issues. If say an English teacher develops outside of what they do in their classroom, but based on their experience in the classroom, maybe develop some model lesson plans or something, wants to publish it. Who owns the copyright? If they use school facilities to produce it, then it's appropriate for the school to retain the copyright. But if they did it on their own computer at home, then they should certainly have the copyright.
Right, as long as they did not have to use, could you submit some data to back up your
Right.
excellent lesson plans that you did with our students?
Right.
We certainly could add in GCQB-RZ to item number 2, any employee who creates material that does not have a connection to or is related to the division using their own equipment. That would that clarify?
Well, I don't feel the need to add anything if the consensus is that there's no conflict.
Okay.
With things as they stand.
I would, Dr. Gupta, I'm coming right to you. Is there anyone that shares Dr. Day's sentiment, or do we tend to agree that there is no conflict? And if there is no conflict, Deputy Superintendent Pugh, we probably do not need any additional verbiage, I wouldn't think. Dr. Gupta?
I don't think there's any conflict. Any institute of higher education, if you're using university's name, you'll have to inform your department chair and dean that you're doing it, because there's liabilities involved. People sue nowadays left and right, and so you got to be careful. So that person in charge should be aware of what is going on, where the university name is being used. So to me, I don't think it's out of line. And copyright is when they get sued, they'll figure it out who owns it.
All right, we will continue then. Thank you, Dr. Day, for raising the question. Continue.
The only one that I really wanted to call attention to was JHCCA, which we did discuss. So other than that, the policies there were just either no changes or minor wording changes specifically to pronouns.
Dr. Gupta?
I move to approve this.
Second.
It's been moved by Dr. Gupta, seconded by Dr. Carter, that we will approve the instruction and program policy updates. Any further question or discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
School Board Member Ms. Preston?
Yes.
School Board Member Mr. Charles?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Brennan?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Coleman?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Carter?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Gupta?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Day?
Yes?
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I-2, Human Resource Policy Review.
Okay, and this is the second reading for the policies for which the group met on August 18th, and I have Ms. Scott here to give a brief overview of those and take any questions.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Okay, so I want to bring our attention to the two policies, GCBRZ, Teaching Experience, and then also the GCE, Part-Time and Substitute Professional Staff. I know Dr. Gupta mentioned at the last work session about the, look at him already shaking his head. So I did do some research with the, I talked to the VDOE, and that is correct. It's nationally, so we're going to update those two policies to update that wording. So I wanted to bring those two policies' attention to you so we can make that change. Yep.
Wow. Thank you, Director Scott. Dr. Day?
And, go ahead.
Oh, you hadn't finished?
Oh, no. I was just going to say that 3 of the policies was, of course, no changes, and then 3 of them just had some minor changes. So I'm open now for any questions.
Thank you, Director Scott. Go right ahead, Dr.
I had a question about GCE, which is about part-time and substitute teachers. And it talks about sort of different categories of substitutes. So a couple of different principals have mentioned to me how fond they are of what they call building level substitutes. But this policy doesn't mention them specifically. So are they handled differently than a normal substitute?
No, they're the same. And I think the billing substitute came about after when COVID hit, because we didn't want to spread the virus, things like that. So we came up with the billing substitute. So no, we treat them the same. Yeah.
Except they're just based, rather than, we have a substitute pool, which at any given day you could be here, there, and everywhere.
Right.
But the building substitutes, because we wanted some consistency in children seeing similar faces day in and day out, they are still subs, but they're
Strictly.
geographically located
Well,
in that building.
and what
Yep.
the principal at EC Glass told me is they actually come into the school every day.
Yes.
Yes,
And
I
are
do.
physically present, do you need me?
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
And
they
so
do.
I thought because of that time commitment to come in and be there every morning, that maybe they ought to be treated differently.
Yeah, we started doing that after we looked at our data, and that "do you need me" question is almost yes in every school every day. So there's almost someone absent every day in every school, and so for the consistency of having someone
So it doesn't
there.
really work out to be much difference in
It
practice.
doesn't. What it does do for us is often some people, well, you wake up in the morning and then you're just like, oh my goodness, I have a fever.
Yeah.
So you call out sick. The window of finding a sub, particularly at our early start schools like Heritage and Glass, someone's got to get the sub call, get dressed, get here, and often like first period or the first period of the day, they're not here. The building subs are guaranteed
To be there.
and
They're there
even if we
ready
have
to go.
someone who's like, I'm going to sub for Dr. Carter, but I can't get there till 9, the building sub can do that first class, and then
Okay.
the sub can come in.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
They just move around where they need it at during the day.
very good, thank you.
Any further questions for Director Scott relative to human resource policy that have been presented to us for action tonight?
Just wanted to thank her for making the change. It affects a lot of schools, and that's what the the US law is now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we're going to continue.
Thank you for bringing that to my
We're going to continue to do education on that, right? To get that understood. I think that's huge. There's so many huge moments tonight that are so subtle, and they're advancing our division, and I'm appreciative of it.
I move to pass this human resource policy.
Second.
Been moved again by Dr. Gupta, seconded by Dr. Carter, that we will approve the human resource policy updates. Any further questions or discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
School Board Member Ms. Preston?
Yes.
School Board Member Mr. Charles?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Brennan?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Coleman?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Carter?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Gupta?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Day?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And now I3, operations policy update.
Absolutely, and same as before, this policy work group met on August 23rd under Dr. Wodeka, and I will just state for the record that there were many more policies. When we originally presented this slate, we took off all of the ones that were transportation related because we wanted to wait and meet and get our transportation policy reps to kind of review those. So, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But these 3 that are here are the 3 that we're bringing back, and I'm going to have Dr. Wodeka just give you a quick update on that.
Thank you, Dr. Edwards. So our remaining 3 items from those changes are related to public records, as well as our school crisis and emergency management and our rights and responsibilities as it relates to those public records. There was one question from Dr. Day at the last meeting regarding an errant fragment in our policy, and so we did address that. Instead of a verb, we added a comma out there to make it consistent. So otherwise, largely just wording changes or VSBA suggested changes, and we'd be certainly glad to have any questions.
Any questions for Dr. Wodeka? Dr. Brennan?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the operation policy update.
I second it.
Thank you, Dr. Brennan, for the motion, Dr. Gupta for the second. Any further questions or discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
School Board Member Ms. Preston? Yes. School Board Member Mr. Trost?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Brennan?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Coleman?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Carter?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Gupta?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Day?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We're moving so nicely. Let's go on into Section J, new business. We have a mixture of discussion and action items, starting with our state accreditation for discussion tonight. Dr. Edwards.
Absolutely. So you recall at the work session, we went over SOL test scores, and at that time, the accreditation had not been finalized. It is now finalized, so I'm going to ask Ms. Pugh and Mr. Coleman to give a brief presentation on accreditation. And what we also would like to do is just, because we do have new board members, sort of explain the process that VDOE uses to accredit public schools, as well as look at our accreditation for our schools. Ms. Pugh.
Thank you, Dr. Edwards. So the Virginia Board of Education revised its accreditation standards to provide a more comprehensive view of school quality while continuing to place an increased emphasis on closing the achievement gap, and these changes were reflected with, beginning with the 2018-19 academic year. So I'm going to give you just a brief overview of the accreditation standards and the implications there. Next slide. The revised standards measure performance on multiple school quality indicators, whereas prior to 2018-19, school quality was measured using overall student achievement on the state tests of English, math, history, and science. And so you'll see at the elementary school and the middle school levels, there's now an English combined reading and writing school quality indicator, mathematics, science, achievement, English, achievement gaps in English and mathematics, and then an absenteeism indicator, but that is being waived, it has been waived for the 22-23 school year. And one thing to note, that accreditation for a certain year is based on the previous year's scores. So the 22-23 accreditation status is based on 21-22 SOL information. And so because we were still in the midst of a pandemic, and this year for 22-23, that absenteeism is being waived. Next slide. You can see for the high school, the school quality indicators are the same as at the elementary and middle school level, except for there's an addition of graduation and completion, the dropout rate, and college, career, and civic readiness. And while the other standards became effective in 2018-19, this became effective in 21-22. Can you go back for just a second? Because I think there may be some questions. The college and career and civic readiness is determined by the number of students that are receiving credit for advanced coursework, or the number of students, the number of CTE finishers that are earning CTE credentials, and the number of students participating in work-based or service learning experiences. And that is divided by the number of students in the on-time graduation cohort. So I just thought there might be some questions as to how that was determined.
So there's no social studies indicator?
No, ma'am. No social studies indicator since 2018-19. Yes.
Now, for the English, mathematics, science, is it simply the pass rate, or are they also looking at some measure of progress?
It's both, and I'm going to get into that.
Oh, you're going to get to that. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Can we just, I thought from last meeting that we were just assuming, but I see that was too much of an assumption, that do we want to let the presenter finish the report so that we can have the report in this whole, and then it might answer some of your questions, and then I think, personally, I think that would help the presenter if we could just hold our questions. Dr. Edwards, you have to give us those little sticky sheets every meeting. Go right ahead.
All right, next slide. So all schools must develop a multi-year plan to support continuous improvement on all indicators. Sometimes specific local and state interventions are required to improve performance on indicators rated at either a level 2 or level 3. So you can see here, I think this might answer a little bit. Level 1 is at or above the standard, and that's performance at or above the state standard for that particular indicator. And there I have indicated 75% passing for reading, 70 for math and science. Also in level 1, there's sufficient improvement towards state standard indicator from a level 2. So if a school has in a certain indicator been a level 2, but they're making significant improvement, that also counts toward becoming a level 1. Level 2 is near standard or improving, and again, I'm not going to read it for you, but you can see how that is somewhat determined. And then below state standard would be level 3, and that is, again, performance on a specific indicator at a level 2 for more than 4 consecutive years. That is an automatic level 3. But you can also see on the right-hand side those actions or interventions that are necessary for a school that is at receives those levels. And again, these are on individual indicators. This is not overall accreditation status. Next slide. So the accreditation ratings under the revised systems, they can earn one of the following accredited, which means that schools have all school quality indicators either at a level 1 or a level 2. They can be accredited with conditions, which means a school has one or more school quality indicators at a level 3. And then accreditation denied is the last rating, and those are schools that fail to adopt or fully implement the required corrective actions to address level 3 school quality indicators. And if a school has accreditation denied, they can regain that accreditation by demonstrating that it is fully implementing all of those actions that have been required by VDOE. All right, the next couple of slides are an example. And so if you are logged into Board Docs, it might be helpful if you could open up the document that is the Virginia Code 8 VAC 20-131-380. I'll give you a second to do that. And if you, in that document, could go to page 3.
There's a second attachment to the agenda.
There were 3.
Is that one?
Yes, it was. It's attached to the agenda item. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Page 3.
Page 3, yes, ma'am. Right. So again, this is an example, and it is a Lynchburg City school, but it is an example of school quality indicators. So you will see there's academic achievement, which is English, and again, that's combined reading and writing. And this particular school is at a level 1. There's there's achievement gap for English, and they are at a level 2 here. Their academic achievement in math is level 1. The achievement gap for math is a level 1. The academic achievement for science is a level 1. Their chronic absenteeism is a level 2, although that's not being counted this year. So they are fully accredited, and that, if you will look at page 3, it on the right-hand side, it talks about those different performance levels. So if you can move to the next slide. This is the academic achievement English. So on page 3, if you look at letter A in the first row, that talks about academic achievement for students in English, and this is all students. The academic indicator.
Our energy saving
Right,
policy.
he's sitting there talking about coffee.
Oh.
No, that's her thing. We need to do that.
We may need to mute some people.
Thank you.
Grateful that was
Appreciate the support.
On it.
All right. If you could go back to the presentation, please. So while they're bringing that back up, and again, go to the previous slide. This, there's information in the blue that talks about the accreditation status from last year and this year, and the school and the grade level span that's Lynchburg City Schools. I did delete the school, but you can see underneath there's an indicator, which is academic achievement English, and that's the data source. There's passing, there's recovery, there's growth, there's EL progress, there's total students who took the test, and the pass rate. So if we look at our at Virginia State Code in letter A, for English, academic achievement, and again, this is for all students, the academic indicator is calculated based on the rate of students who pass the assessment, the board-approved assessment, which is our SOLs. It also includes any additional students who showed growth using board-approved measures, and any additional students who are English learners who showed growth toward English proficiency using board-approved measures. So for numbers 2 and 3 in that description, those students may not have overall had a passing score, but they have shown growth. on an SOL or on an English proficiency measure. So you can see here that for the current year, there were, for English, 470 students passing. There were 31 students in recovery, and what that means is that a student in recovery is a student who in a previous year has, let's say for example, this is English, they've passed English as a course, but they did not pass the English SOL. In their current grade, they again passed the course and they passed the SOL. Those students receive what we call remediation, and if they had that growth after receiving remediation, then they're considered students in recovery. The students that showed growth, again, that's students that showed growth from the fall to the spring. The EL progress, that's students who may not have, again, passed the SOL assessment, but they have showed growth towards their English proficiency on the EL assessment that we give in January. So overall, their pass rate is a 73.16. Does anyone recall what the cutoff is for a level 1 for English? 75.
That's right.
So they are below 75, so they are a level 2 this current year. But the other caveat here is that you can take the final performance level, which is on the right-hand side, and for this school overall in English is a level 1. The final performance level is based on either the current year or the cumulative 3-year rate, if that is more favorable. And so you can see the cumulative 3-year on the bottom row was a 77.42, which is a level 1. So because that is more favorable than the 73.16, their rating for English achievement is a level 1. Right? Have I completely... You following? Okay.
Excellent.
Next slide.
Explaining that.
Next slide. So the achievement gap indicator, and again, you could also reference the code that you have on page 3, and this is row D, where it says achievement gaps for English. They are calculated based on a single performance level for academic achievement gaps, which is a composite score calculated individually for each reporting group using the same methodology and the same benchmarks provided for the achievement indicators. So this is based on all of the different subgroups that we have.
Wow.
So you can see here, and we'll take the TS, that group is too small, which is under 30. So for our Asian population, we don't have any information because that's too small. And this is again for the entire school achievement gap in English. But if you look at Black students, so the current year, and then again, they use the same ratings, 179 passed, 13 students were in recovery, 51 students showed growth, and so then 388 total tests. That's a pass rate of 62.63. That's a level 3. But again, the cumulative 3 years is higher, which is 66.08. So for Black students, they are at a level 2. So you can go down and see. But if you will look back at the Virginia Code and in the performance level column for row D, this tells you how those are figured. So a school with no more than one reporting group demonstrating a level 2 performance is automatically a level 1. Schools with 2 or more reporting groups demonstrating level 2, or no more than one reporting demonstrating level 3 are at a level 2 overall, and a level 3 school is schools with 2 or more reporting groups at a level 3 performance. So overall, this is at a level 2 based on these based on these calculations.
So can I point out something?
You may.
Here too, is that as you look at this, we have a tendency to think that these are different students across groups. But imagine if you have a student who is in a group, like economically disadvantaged, that's a level 2. If that student also is a student with disabilities, we're counting them a second time. And if that student also is, let's just say, multiple races, we're counting them a third time. So when we start looking at the number of level 1s, level 2s, sometimes it's the same students that are being counted in multiple groups that land us here. The other thing about TS is when you're looking at groups that are too small, that are under 30, if you have 10 students year 1, 10 students year 2, 10 students year 3, your 3-year average is based on 30 students. So those 10 students, while in a given year might be too small, but over the cumulative, they actually count towards the scores when you look at the 3-year cumulative. And we had some schools that fell in that population where they're like, we don't really have a lot of students, but over the 3 years, that group did count towards that.
Thank you, Dr. Edwards. So that is how an achievement gap indicator is determined. So we have the overall achievement in English, math, and science, and that's all students. Your achievement gap indicators are for English and math, and those are calculated using the subgroups of students that you see before you. So I thought it was very helpful for you to have the Virginia Code because pages 3 and 4 spell out in much detail how the indicators are determined in the subdivision in each area. So next slide. So these are the overall accreditation statuses for 22-23 for our Lynchburg City Schools. And elementary is first, middle school, and then high school. So you can see that we have some schools that are accredited with conditions, and other schools, it's about split right down the middle, other schools that are have full accreditation status.
But none denied.
Correct, absolutely. We do not have any schools that have been denied. And that is my explanation on accreditation.
Okay, we're going to open up, did Mr. Coleman have to say anything?
No, he's fine.
All right.
Thank you.
I actually enjoyed.
It was Amy's turn.
I actually enjoyed that and learned from that. And thank you for your skill to explain that to us. It is refreshing on this board that everything that's being presented to us, Dr. Edwards, we understand it, and it's so well put together. Dr. Carter.
And Mrs. Pugh, thank you for the explanation because it did dive deep and really cleared up some items. So I hear all the time that during the pandemic, we weren't actually open, that we were closed. And now I wrote down accredited with conditions versus denied. So we weren't denied accreditation. So accreditation with conditions, is that we're accredited, but we have some things to do?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So like we were really in school, we had school while we were virtual? Okay. Just want to clear that up. Okay.
Yes, we never closed our doors. We were in school either virtually or remote, and then a hybrid in the first year. And then last year, we were open 5 days in-person learning. You'll recall, though, that for the 2021 and 21-22 school years, accreditation was waived at the state level. So when you look at a 3-year accreditation status, it goes from 2018-19, 2019-20, and then we jump to 2022-23. because during the pandemic, for those 2 years, accreditation was waived at the state level. But you are correct. We are accredited with conditions, means that the school has one or more school quality indicators at a level 3, and those schools will write action plans. And again, those are plans that they write every year. They are their school, comprehensive school improvement plans, and they are specific to doing a needs assessment and determining perhaps the root cause of why that school in that particular area is at a level 3, and then putting together some action steps that they can work on as an entire school with the support of the C&I department and with division staff to support them. So accredited with conditions is accredited. It just means that that school has an action plan that they need to work on throughout the year.
The other thing is, there are two, but one is, do we see any similarities in the accredited with conditions or the accredited, like any areas that we can,
Yes.
that are highlighted or that we need to really,
Yes, and I did not put the individual indicators. I did not include these on the slide, but one area in particular at the elementary level that was an area, and this was, again, across the state. This was not just in Lynchburg City Schools, but science for some of our elementary schools was a level 3. And in some middle schools, but mostly at the elementary level. That was some of the biggest concerns, and that's why those schools are accredited with conditions.
and the other one I just lost again. But, going back to the college career civic readiness, can you explain that again, how it's divided by the number of students that are in there?
I certainly can. So the college career and civic readiness is determined by the number of students receiving credit for advanced coursework, the number of CTE finishers, those students who finish CTE courses that are also earning CTE credentials, so certifications, and the number of students that are participating in work-based or service learning experiences. So you take that total and you divide that by the number of students that are in the on-time graduation cohort. And that cohort is comprised of the expected on-time graduates and students carried over from a previous cohort, and it's those students that enter 9th grade together and then finish at 12th grade together. So it's all of the students that started in 9th grade that are still there together in 12th grade is a graduation cohort.
And the work learning, is that any type of job or vocation, or is this?
Those are work-based and service learning experiences that are partnerships with LCS. So it would not just be a part-time job somewhere.
Okay, and I remember what I was thinking. So the test scores here are looking back 3 years, 2018 to 2019, correct?
Well, the scores, can you go back to the presentation, please? And the last slide. So what you see on the last slide are the accreditation levels for, one more, right, for the overall accreditation status for our schools in LCS for this year, 22-23. So this is our accreditation status for this school year. Those are based on either the 21-22 SOL results, so last year's SOL results, or the 3-year average, whichever is better. So the 3-year average is 2018-19, 2019-20, and then 21-22.
So it's spring 2018, spring 2019.
And then
spring 2020 is when the governor closed us. We didn't test.
Right.
And then spring 21, we had the iffy test. A lot of folks opted out. So it's spring of 18, spring of 19, and spring of 22.
So I think the thing that you have to remember is that accreditation status for a given year is figured out using the previous year's SOL scores or the past 3-year average. And because we were waived for 2 years by the governor, we don't use those scores. 1 year we didn't test in the spring of 20, and 21, again, we're not using those scores from that spring because accreditation was waived. I know it is complicated.
But I was just thinking, in the worst year, last year may have been more problematic than the previous years because we were coming back and trying to get back into a routine, and for, I think for the students too, and for the teachers, I just,
Right. And I would say if accreditation status had been assigned, it probably would have been. But for the past 2 years, accreditation has been waived. So no one's been assigned any level of accreditation. No public school across the Commonwealth.
Thank you, Dr. Carter. Dr. Gupta.
Now, let me give a disclaimer. I'm not a fan of this accreditation. To me, it's more of a game playing. Because when you start developing a code around 3-year averages and 4-year averages, it just muddies the water. But having said that, for people who use this as an opportunity to attack our superintendent, I want them to, I don't know if you could read these numbers. Prior to her taking over LCS at the helm, our accredited schools were in teens, and teens mean low teens. I see the number 2, 3, 5, 7. That's anemic. A doctor will know better than I do. She comes over, and the number jumps to 12. That's not a single digit, that's a double digit. I'm a math horrified guy, but I can see 12 is much higher than 7. Then 13, and then 2 years, you give her a little break for pandemic, it's 8. So it's not like the whole roof is fallen down, the London Bridge is not fallen down yet. So to use this as an opportunity to attack, I think is not good. We got to look for what could we do to make this division better. And I think these 3 standards you have added in high school, to me, gives more value because you are using college credits, you advanced credits, your CTEs. So what we'll be seeing in the future years will be the real numbers, which I think, in my opinion, LCS will shine. So they got to hold their guns in the barrel. Don't attack her right now. Look at the historical data. I think she has done, you got to give a credit to the person where the credit is due and give the criticism where the criticism is due. So when I see 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 12, and I'm not a math professor, to me that's a significant jump. So let's help us make it better. That's all I'll say. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta. Dr. Day.
Let's see, I had a couple questions, see if I can. In the presentation on page 5, where it explained what accredited with conditions, and accredited denied means. Accredited denied, it says, are schools who had some plans to how to address their level 3 categories, but didn't satisfactorily follow through on them. Right. Who makes that determination, whether a school has adequately followed its own plans or not?
The Office of School Quality in Virginia Department of Education.
So it's not us, it's done by the
Absolutely.
state level.
It is done by the Office of School Quality. And just to note that these schools that are accredited with conditions and have to write some action plans in their comprehensive school improvement program, they go through some fall monitoring, a spring monitoring, and again, so that the VDOE is also helping with us in assisting those schools in making sure that they are working on their plans as they should. But we do not make that. It is a determination out of the Office of School Quality.
Okay. I downloaded the whole spreadsheet from the Department of Education that shows all the schools statewide and their accreditation status. And just scanning through it now, I don't see a single school that's accreditation denied. Is that perhaps because the accreditation status wasn't even available in the previous year, so that they couldn't have their quality indicator level 3 plans to fail?
They would still need to be working on those action plans. So if they had a plan, a level 3 in the last year prior, then they would have had that action plan, and they still would have had to have been working on that. I think that just as a testament to schools are really using their comprehensive school improvement plans to work on continuous improvement and academic achievement.
And then just one final comment, sort of following up on what Dr. Gupta said. There are other school districts that have a significant number of accreditation with conditions, like Newport News, Richmond, even Charlottesville, I think, where there is I would say a more urban environment. So for those who might be disappointed in our number of schools that still have conditions, it's not unusual given the kind of demographics that we have. The other cities, districts with similar demographics find themselves in a similar state of affairs.
Thank you for that. And I also think we have to remember that accredited with conditions, you have one or more level 3 school quality indicators. For elementary, there are 6, elementary and middle school, there are 6 school quality indicators. So if you have one level 3 and the rest are level 1, you are still accredited with conditions. So I think we need to also keep that in mind.
Yeah, good.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Good job explaining a very complicated system.
Thank you.
Yes, you get an A+ for that. That is just wonderful. All right, if board members have no other questions on that, and of course, all of this information will be appropriately communicated to the public, and we are thankful for that as we move forward, and all comments have been appreciated. We're now going to move to J2, and this is an action item for tonight. We had an opportunity to talk about these in a prior session as a board, and I'm sure that each of you have looked at them. We've tried to make sure all of the verbiage is accurate as to what we discussed. Are there any thoughts about the approval, a motion to approve LCS school board norms and protocols?
I move that we approve school board norms and protocols.
Dr. Carter has made the motion. Is there a second to that motion?
I second.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta, as a second. Now, we'll pause for just a moment in there questions or discussion, concerns, and this will govern us as we continue to move forward.
I just wanted to make sure, I have the floor.
Yes, you do.
I just want to make sure that we speak as one, we have the right to still speak as individual board member, but have a disclaimer up front that I'm speaking as an individual school board member, not on behalf of the whole board.
Yeah, I think that's very important to note. And previously, I think there's been a level of understanding. Sometimes it gets questioned, but I think that it's clear for us to understand that that is how we will operate. And either through a designee, sometimes, as Dr. Brennan handled a matter last week, we'll always communicate that out, but each of you have the right to be able to share, if you so choose, with the appropriate disclaimer that Dr. Gupta just mentioned. Any further question or discussion on the norms and protocols? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
School Board Member Ms. Preston. School Board Member Mr. Charles.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Brennan.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Coleman.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Carter.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Gupta.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Day.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, and Madam Clerk, I don't know if all the board members have that at their desk, but just remember those as we move along, and from time to time, we may need to refer to them, and I'll be glad to do so. Item 3 is a donation from Bedford Hills PTO for action. Dr. Edwards.
Yes, absolutely. So per our policy, any donation of $5,000 or more has to come to the school board. So I received a nice letter from the Bedford Hills PTO of their intent to support our media specialists at Bedford Hills and our idea lab at Bedford Hills with some iPads and some Osmo iPad technology, which allows a lot of creative learning, and the amount is for $5,000. So I've included the letter as well as a couple of the items, and I think I sent the board just a website where you could go and see some of the instructional materials that will be in our Idea Lab at Bedford Hills. So they are asking for the board approval. Normally, we take 2 readings, but I'm hopeful tonight that you will want to support this so that they can get this up and running.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. What is the pleasure of the board?
I move to make it as an action item.
Second.
Been moved by Dr. Gupta and seconded by Dr. Carter with some unreadiness.
No, I didn't know that it had already been said.
Oh, thank you. All right, thank you. That this donation, because of the value of it, is approved by the board, and they can move forward expeditiously. Any further questions or discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
School Board Member Ms. Preston? School Board Member Mr. Charles?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Brennan?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Coleman?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Carter?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Gupta?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Day?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Can I ask a question
Sure.
about that previous motion? It doesn't affect whether we pass it or not. Is this an example of something that shows up as a donation when we do get reporting a budget? Okay, just to clarify my understanding of things. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Day. Item 4 under Section J is now dealing with the 23-24 budget calendar, and this is for information, Dr. Edwards.
So each year, we have to review and then approve the budget calendar. And again, this is up for information first, and then it will be on the agenda later for approval after a second reading. I'm going to ask Dr. Wodaka to talk about some of the minor changes that you made in the budget calendar.
Thank you, Dr. Edwards. So we discussed this at our school board retreat, but just for the public to hear what some of our changes are. As we think about the budget calendar and how we've adjusted, largely some of the language that we use in the budget calendar document, talking more about budget recommendations rather than sort of, we'll just say sort of wish lists that are coming from different parts of the organization. And so our major focus for the budget for this year is to do a couple of things. First, to make sure our process internally ensures that principals and directors have a very strong understanding of how it is that individual lines within their budget are constructed, and so what goes into that, and also making sure that budgets that are recommended for the building level or the department level are consistent with larger strategic visions for either that school or for the division as a whole. So you just heard Ms. Pugh talk about those school plans, and so the question is, how is it that the budget recommendations that we're making every year, how are they going to strategically invest in resources in places where we need to make improvements towards improving our student achievement and other things as well. So largely that's sort of our process going forward. The changes that you see are largely the internal components, and certainly would take any questions you might have.
Questions? Dr. Gupta.
The involvement of Finance Committee in the budgeting process.
So I think there's opportunities. Certainly, I think that for the operating budget, I think it's really important for school administration to have the opportunity to present a recommended budget sort of out of the gate, right? To have the opportunity to kind of talk about where the school division is going. But I think there's certainly an opportunity for Finance Committee to review that, certainly as we develop our capital improvement plan components, et cetera.
See, I don't see in black and white the involvement of Finance Committee in this whole budgeting process. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's just sort of left out. It may come, it may not come, depending on, when you say you're going to meet every building administrator, it's in black and white.
Yeah.
That needs to happen. That step is there as part of that month. So is there a step to involve the Finance Committee in this process? And where will that be? Should it be there or not? That was my.
Yeah, so I maybe we'll look back to history, but.
I'm gonna toss that one right back to you all, because this goes back to, we used to kind of present the budget to the Finance Committee. We would work with the Finance Committee in some of the larger scale scope and items, and then bring all of that, no votes, no anything, to the larger board, but the finance committee sort of served as a talking and discussion. I won't say vetting, because vetting gives the impression that they can say remove and that, but things to consider, things to think about. And then we moved away from that because it seemed as though the board at that time, different board now, wanted that conversation that we would have at the finance committee to have that exact same conversation at the school board meeting. So in order to not just do double duty, we stopped doing that at the finance committee, or we were doing both at the finance committee. But it is at the pleasure of the sitting board right now what we do going forward and how this board wants to utilize the finance committee in its role as we develop the budget, recognizing that the finance committee does not make any decisions, but still brings everything to the full board.
See, board has, in my personal perspective, more strategic view of the finances for the district, not the weeds of it, like, how many math teachers will you have? That's the district superintendent's decision. So, otherwise, finance committee is basically mundane, just sitting there, attend one or two discussions and come home. Otherwise, where do we have a real strategic discussion of the future of this district? Where do we see 3 years from now? Is there a budget reallocation possible in this coming up year, next year, or the following year? Are resources going to be staying constant? No organization has constant flow of resources and everything because customer base changes. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that's the type of discussion personally I like to have in the finance committee, not the weeds of it that why do you have $10,000 on toilet papers? That's not finance committee's purview.
Sure.
Okay, if it would be okay with the board tonight, I think Dr. Gupta is saying as we look at the calendar, if you're meeting with directors, you're meeting with principals and so forth. The chair of the committee is not here, nor Mr. Andrews. Could we put this on the work session for a brief discussion, have talked it through, Vice Chair, with people and kind of figure out what we want to do with those two philosophical approaches so that the superintendent and staff can understand where we're going. They haven't done anything wrong. We have been ambivalent on the matter, which we need to stop as a board. Thank you very much. We're going to go ahead. Yes, Dr. Go ahead.
Comment to that, because I just want to support what Dr. Gupta is saying. I think that we've had a discussion about what we want the role of the board to be on committees. We want it to be more active and more going back to where it was in the past. So I'm hoping that the finance committee and the board can look at that and find a more active role for the finance committee to play in the budget discussion and other things that are pertinent.
Thank you, Dr. Brennan. That makes sense. But we'll work it through that way. All right. Any further questions? Thank you, Dr. Whitaker. We'll now move to 5, and this is for information, annual required public notification. Dr.
Yes, as the title says, each year, usually in October, we are required to notify our public of several different policies and information about our budget and where this information is posted, where they can find it within their schools, on our website, and other places. VSBA does a great job of giving us a list of things, and each year we update the list, make sure the links are accurate and that they reflect the 2022-2023 school year. So what you have listed here under the public is a very exhaustive list of things from cost per pupil to counseling, credits, and where folks can find that information. Much of it is on our website, and we've included links. There's nothing for the board to vote on or do with this information. It is just for information only, and we're required to present it publicly at a board meeting, which we do each October.
All right, Dr. Day.
This is on the same profound level as missing commas.
Okay.
On the item pupil-teacher ratios, looks like it wasn't completed. There's a ... at the end.
Oh, yeah, there is a ... So, and there's a link for that too, so.
There is a link.
Yeah, we'll take out the dot. Thank you, Dr. Day. We'll take out the ... and put the correct link there.
Yeah, that's right. All right, so thank you. Get rid of that ellipses and do that. You're doing some good work, Dr. Conley. Thank you so much.
Yes, working.
Dr. Day, I should say. All right, very good. Any further notices regarding that? And again, it's a lot there. Thank you for looking it over, and thank you that we're in compliance to bring that before the board and the public. All right, if there's nothing else there, we're going to move to Section K, which is the superintendent's comment.
Yes, and I'll be brief tonight. I just want to once again give our student reps, our 2 high school reps as always, but our guest rep, Kaylani Toller, and parent for supporting, Kaylani, parents for supporting her tonight in presenting. I don't know if we didn't give her much prep in terms of what to do, so it is really great that our elementary students, middle school students, you'll see too, are eager to speak and share with you, and we want to provide more opportunities for our students to do that. So kudos to the team for making that happen. Also, just want to say to parents that if, we had a lot of back-to-school nights over the month of September, could not get to all of them, but if you had not had an opportunity to visit your child's school, please, please, please make an opportunity to go there, to get involved, to talk to teachers. This year specifically, thanks to the calendar committee, we are having dedicated parent-teacher conference nights or family-teacher conference nights. So more information about that will be coming out from each individual school. But again, it is our effort to really involve parents in their child's education and have conversations with those who do spend 7 hours a day with your children. So look out for that. Also new this year, something different that we're doing is our bus duty or bus supervision pickup at the end of the day. And I just want to bring this to the board and the public's attention. We did do a notice about it, but it has been going on since Labor Day. But one of the things that happens when we have our young children who there's not a parent or guardian or an adult, responsible adult for them at the bus stop, if they're in grades K1 and 2, we will not let them off the bus. So we will, you had in the past taking them back to each of the 11 elementary schools where different administrators and teachers were staffed and waiting. You can imagine that was 4:30 and beyond. We are now taking all of the kids to a central location, which is at Perrymont School, and we want parents to know, because we have had some parents not sure they're going to their base schools, and all of the children that have not been able to be delivered to their homes or their adult waiting at the bus stop are coming back to Perrymont School. We have a great system in place that works extremely well, and senior leadership has covered those positions. We just hired our new not student engagement, give me the right title.
Extended
Learning Coordinator, who started today and probably had the most adventurous day of our I was there on Friday, not a single kid was dropped off, and today we actually had to deliver a child to their home. So kudos to our staff. We do make a lot of phone calls, which brings me to my public service announcement to my families. Please make sure in Infinite Campus, you not only have your cell phone number, your work number, your home number, and any other number that we can contact you, but our kids also need an emergency contact if you can't be reached. So we do go down the list. Some of our families are fantastic. They have 1 through 6, so we can find someone to connect a kid. But for children, it could be very traumatic at about 5:15 if we have not been able to reach a family member and we're sitting with children. So parents, if you're listening, family members, if you're listening, go in. You may have changed cell phone numbers and not changed it in Infinite Campus. Please make sure that we have updated information there. And just some other quick things. We did have a couple meetings that I have attended. I did go to meet with the folks at CVCC and the CTE Academy to talk more about our lab school proposal. And as you heard Ms. Pugh talk about the number of students in advanced placement CTE courses and work-related things, that is one of the things we're trying to build in Lynchburg City Schools. And we've added CTE Academy this year to our high school program, and we're going to build that interest in the middle schools and work our way up so that kids have that opportunity as well. Several of us attended the VCIC Inclusion Summit, although it might have been interrupted a little bit for a few of us, but some awesome information there. And I know our director, Ethel Rees, is getting us all together so that we can have an action plan of what we're doing for not only just children in Lynchburg City Schools, but we also had a city staff member who was part of our team, Holly Jennings at the city, joined our team with Lynchburg City Schools because it really is a community effort. I had the opportunity to attend the YMCA Annual Impact Celebration, which again is a great night just to celebrate the work that they're doing, and particularly a highlight was the Power Scholars program, so we were grateful to have that partnership with them. Kudos to my staff. I don't know if you saw the picture of all of my staff, which I didn't make the picture. I was still in the parking lot, but that ran the 10-miler, the 4-miler, and the 4-mile walk. It was a great running day. Weather was awesome, camaraderie. We just had fun time. And then just running up Crane Hill Road for some of us was a challenge, but we'll be back next year bigger and better, ready to do that. But I'm grateful for my staff that they participate and really value that healthy initiative in that respect. I also had the opportunity to go to Old Dominion Job Corps for one of their recognition celebrations and got to talk to some students there as well. And they are working on their, they have a resident program where you can live at Job Corps and they give you a lot of work-based skills. They have a wonderful facility there, which if you are tinkering hands-on, you're just going to be stuck in that place, which was where I was. But they also have a non-resident program that they're trying to build as well to connect students with experiences that don't have to be residents of Job Corps. So more to come with them. They are partners with Virginia CareerWorks, which is a partner with us, so that we can deal with all of our children and what I call our and beyond plan to make sure that our students have a viable connection and a successful path after high school. And lastly, just want to give a shout out to One Community, One Voice. They are back in person with their bike program. Had the opportunity just recently to go to Bass, and just a special shout out to Principal Hendricks and all of her students, because we, the adults, took some time on that stage as we were concluding the program, and those children were sitting in the audience and they were absolutely magnificent, very well behaved, attentive, applauding their fellow colleagues or peers who received bikes, and just generally happy. And that is just a tribute to the culture and climate and community that they have made over at Bass under Ms. Hendricks' leadership and that of the staff. So we're very grateful for them. And then all of our community members who come out each time we do this to celebrate. We have our Sheriff's Department, our Commonwealth Department. We had people from the Governor's Office, our Police Department, our staff. It's just a wonderful group that come and celebrate our kids. So wanted to end on a happy note and just say thank you to everyone for that.
Thank you, Dr. Edwards. Always impressive in your reporting. We're going to now move to section L with our board comments. I'd like to start with the Vice Chair, Dr. Brennan.
Woo. Cool. Right there. Wow. So a couple of things. One is that one of the opportunities I have as being a board member that I've enjoyed so much over the years is going to visit all of the schools in the fall and visit with the principals. So I've completed that project for this year. I've visited the 11 elementary schools, the 3 middle schools, and the 2 high schools, and met with the principals and some staff. And just, I feel like everyone is enthusiastic and ready to reset and refresh for this year. But it was a great experience, and I appreciate all of them letting me come by. I also did a couple of things related to the Adopt a School program that we have. I went by the family night at Dearrington Elementary School. I was invited to a PTO meeting at Lincoln Middle School. It was a little tense, but we made through it okay, but it was very good. And I would strongly encourage other board members, if you haven't had a chance yet, to reach out to your schools to do so. And if you're wondering who they may be, I'm sure Tina will be happy to send you that list. But it really is, the principals appreciate, the staff do. It really is worthwhile. And then this week I had the opportunity to visit EC Glass and watch the African American Survey course that we've heard so much about from Mr. Aaron Reed. This is the pilot program that is being done in 13 high schools in the United States, and we are one of the 13 that's doing it. We had those 2 students that talked to us a couple months ago or so about the program, and I have to say it was very impressive. It's a very diverse group. Half of the students in this AP class are African American. Well, I asked them if they thought it was worthwhile and why it was worthwhile, and they talked about the diversity of it, how they're cooperating. They all sit at tables together, and the example that I got to see was that Mr. Reed gave each of the 7 groups one term that they had to go Google that was related to the topic they were going to do, and in 20 minutes they had to put a 3 to 4 minute PowerPoint presentation together, those 3 or 4 students together, and then they gave the presentation, which was really phenomenal to watch that happen and come out. But it was very worthwhile, and I think is going to be a great program. I hope that we'll continue to support in the future. And then lastly, Mr. Trost and I participated virtually on the SBA Superintendent Workshop, which I think was also great, and thanks for supporting both of our ability to go to that. But thank you all very much, and thank you, Dr. Coleman, for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Brennan, for all of your great work. I really appreciate it. Dr. Carter.
Well, I wanted to again do a shout out to Kalani. Just think about, she started the school day at what, 8:45 or earlier? And at 5:30, she was still there at her school. So the students, they have a lot to do. They're not like, well, my time when you just went there and came. But that's just so impressive. And also a shout out to the Bedford Hills PTO. And I just wish that some of the other PTOs, I know they're up and running with, and if you are not part of the PTO, any parents join the PTO and just contribute, and you can contribute in numerous ways. And another shout out is to Mrs. Catherine Allen. She was made, well, everyone was very impressed. I was at a church Sunday, my church in Mount Hope in Rustburg, and my niece had a birthday Sunday. And she received a telephone call from Mrs. Catherine Allen singing happy birthday. So everyone around said, what school do you go to? What school do you go to? So that was just great to see that LCS, those teachers going above and beyond. And also for LCS, just to make sure that children are getting home. Other places would have called CPS. So that's a good thing to do. That's all.
Thank you, Dr. Carter. Dr. Gupta.
I don't have any comments.
Well, Dr. Gupta, you made some powerful comments already tonight. Thank you so much for each of them. Dr. Day.
Well, I think I've probably mentioned this to many of you in individual conversations. One of my goals is to try to understand things from the classroom teacher's perspective. And so I've talked to a few classroom teachers, and tomorrow I'm going to Algebra 1. So I'm going to go to Algebra 1 in the middle of the day tomorrow over at EC Glass, and this was at the teacher's invitation, and she said, if you want to see what it's really like, come to my Algebra 1 class. So I'm going to baptism by fire tomorrow.
Well, thank you, Dr. Day, for your engagement. It speaks volumes. Ms. Preston?
Just I'd like to give accolades to this board. One of the things that I've been really impressed with is the ability for us to disagree without being disagreeable, yeah. to express our opinions because the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. And if we're not open and honest with each other about our different perspectives, we're never going to arrive at that point. So I give you accolades for that.
Thank you. Incredibly well said. I want to go back and watch this meeting. It's just really, oh, my goodness. Mr. Trost.
I wanted to just stress to the parents, ask your children about their day in school, take an interest, give them support, show them a little bit of love. It goes a long ways. And get involved with their homework and give them the support they need to be academically successful.
Thank you, Mr. Trost. Thank you for your fine work. Dr. Edwards wanted to add one other point, and then I'll make a few statements, and then we'll be ready.
Something I said I'll tell you later, and then I forgot to tell you. Just a follow-up, we do know that we had a LACRA meeting, and we did have the LEA and transportation representation at that meeting, and we discussed some things. We did have a follow-up meeting, as I mentioned. I have a monthly meeting with the LEA reps. So we do have, and I just want to share as a follow-up to the board, we do have from the LEA president, two transportation members who are going to join our quarterly transportation-only meeting team. We also have 3 transportation members who are willing to meet with us to talk about PD concerns. And then we have 1 transportation member who is going to work with us with the policy group. So if you remember, those were three of the things that we had proposed to the union that we would like to work with them on. And as of today, I did get information that we at least have names, so we'll be moving forward with some of those initiatives, and we'll just keep you informed about that.
That's great.
Thank you, Dr. Edwards. I tell you, we're busy at work, and this is part of our collaborative effort. I do want to say three very brief statements, one of which I'm going to read. I think this nice note from Jody Gillette. Dear Dr. Coleman and LCS, the school board members, first I want to thank you very much for providing such a meaningful recognition at the September the 6th school board meeting. Your resolution of commendation and appreciation captured so much of our important work together. And I'm honored to have served in that capacity and to work with all of you and the dedicated LCS faculty and staff. Second, that gift basket, wow. The collection of gifts and mementos gathered from the schools was so tremendously thoughtful, a true walk down memory lane. Thank you for all you do for our partnership and for the many years together. That's from Jody Gillette. And I also would like to acknowledge along that notion of community engagement, and I heard loud and clear how that's going to be so important going forward. I do want to give a shout out to the Virginia University of Lynchburg football team and Coach Newman. They had some players to go over to Sheffield Elementary School and read and work with those young people, and I think that is a powerful thing. And lastly, I just want to remember a very important person. Everybody's important, but Dee Fowler had her homegoing celebration, and we were so willing to help support Diamond Hill. School board member Preston was a part of that, to let them use the parking lot. And just to remember her, she was such an advocate for Lynchburg City Schools. Thank you. All right, at this time now, we will move to our informational items. And as you can see under Section M, the Finance and Facilities Committee meeting, as Dr. Gupta alluded to earlier, is going to be Tuesday at 3:30 p.m. I do want to make sure that everybody who needs to be there will be there. But Dr. Edwards, can you just remind the board, because we said we don't ever want our superintendent to go. She's fully capable, and Mr. Coleman. I know Dr. Brennan's going to be there. I will be in Charlotte, but just make sure everybody's clear on what's happening.
So on Tuesday, October 11th, Mr. Coleman, Ms. Pugh, and myself, along with any board members who would love to travel with us, at 4 o'clock will be at City Hall, the City Council work session. This is the follow-up to the joint meeting that we had where, unfortunately, much of what Mr. Coleman was going to present was on the cutting room floor because we ran out of time. So what we are going to do, and we've already sent ahead the presentation that we shared with you all September 20th on the SOL scores, as well as Ms. Pugh's presentation tonight on accreditation. So on October 11th, we'll give the City Council a summary of both of those and take any questions similar to what you all have asked tonight. We'll be ready for them at their work session.
Dr. Gupta?
Do we have, I'd like to be at that meeting, but because of the finance, I cannot. I don't know, do we have enough items for the committee to meet for the agenda on Tuesday, or could it be moved? I'm just putting that question out there because there are two conflicting important meetings at the same time.
I think that point is well said, and again, the chair is not here, but I think that's worth some looking into. And we may not be able to do it right now, but let's see if we can look into that, Dr. Edwards. I think this board is fully supportive of us being supportive of that level of work before council, even though the presenters are going to do all of the talking. Our presence makes a statement. So, Dr. Gupta, let us look into that. Thank you so much for that. All right, the governance training, we're going back to Charlottesville, 9 to 1 on Monday, October the 17th. Make sure you've done all of your preliminary work and send it in. Dr. Brennan is going to remind me and make sure I have mine in on time.
I already put that for you.
Oh, you did? Item 3, the school board work session on the 18th at 5, and we'll make sure we include it in financial dynamics that we need to discuss that night. Legislative advocacy is back on schedule Tuesday, October the 25th. Is there anything else that has been omitted from the informational items or anything else before the board? Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned.